Hello everyone, welcome back to another video with On Point Politics, your number one stop for all things polling and election analysis in the United States. And today we're going to be looking at my updated forecast. Hit the like button and subscribe if you want more content just like this. And make sure to comment down below because it does help us out with the algorithm. And make sure to go into the description and follow me on X as we are growing there pretty quickly at On Point Politics in all lowercase. And so looking right now, we have a couple of things to talk about. Right now, the Harris-Walz interview came out, and it wasn't the worst thing in the world for her, but it was definitely not tasteful to the American people in the way that she probably would have hoped it would have been. There were a lot of answers she gave that were a little bit indirect. Tim Walz arguably gave even worse answers than her, to be honest. Geez, he really messed up when it came to the stolen valor stuff. He essentially said it was a misspoken moment of not using the right grammar or something. It's kind of ridiculous. But either way, she still managed to mess up that debate, didn't give clear answers or gave answers that were very unpopular to certain things. For example, they asked her, oh, well, are you going to change your how come you flip-flopped on your policies? And she was like, look, my values haven't changed. We got to talk about the new Green New Deal. And it's like, really? So it wasn't appealing to the moderate voter. And right now, she, in my national average, which adjusts for the party ID of all the polling, currently has Harris losing the national popular vote by around 2.5 points. And as time goes on, when Kennedy dropped out, which was right around August 25th, he's gone down a little bit over a point. And yes, they've technically both gained, but Trump is the one who's technically netted a little bit more support from the endorsement. And you could say the aggregate is slightly outdated before August 25th because that day I did actually implement something in my average to grade by undecideds. And what this does is it gives more weight to pollsters who actually basically ended up having less undecideds in their polling. So the less undecideds you have, the higher score you have in the setting as a whole. So if you have 30% undecided, you're going to get a really low score. But if you have 1% undecided or 0, you're going to get a pretty high rating in this section, which gives you a higher average score, and your weight is higher in the average. So when I did that, Trump's percentage stayed the same, but Harris's went up about a point, and the undecideds did go down. And the thing is, I want to weigh out undecideds as much as humanly possible because I want to have as little room for error when predicting the popular vote. And if I can get the popular vote correct, I'll be able to predict almost the entire election correct at this point. So I'm projecting a tied electorate right now, which is a little bit redder than last time. And Republicans have netted voter registration across the country except Colorado. And so that's why I feel like having a tied electorate is a little bit more of a fair assessment right now. You could say maybe it's, like this. Maybe you could say it's tied like this, where they're both at 36.5, 20% independents. And at that point, yes, the race kind of gets closer. But I think that the actual party basis may turn out slightly more, and there may be less independents because this cycle there are a lot of disaffected voters. And so that's where I have the current average at as of right now. And so far, Donald Trump is at 48.3%, which is a lot higher than what he got in 2020, which was 46.9% of the national popular vote. And Harris is sitting at around 45.6%, around 2.5% undecideds. Kennedy at 3%. And as time goes on, he's going to get to 0. And Donald Trump seems to be the one who's netted slightly more support from the Kennedy dropout so far. Once about 2 weeks goes by, we'll have a little bit of a better picture. But clearly, something is not looking good for Harris right now. And if she's down in the popular vote by 2.5 points, it's really not going to be a good look for her because that means Donald Trump essentially wins all these states by safe red margins. He would be putting Alaska there, Iowa, Ohio by over 15-point wins, and Seltzer, according to Rich Barris, is even hiding in a Trump plus 19 poll, and they happen to be one of the most accurate pollsters in Iowa, actually the most accurate pollster. Maine second would probably be safe. We'd also have, states like California still be safe, Hawaii still be safe, D.C., Maryland, Massachusetts, Vermont still be in the safe Democrat column. States like Texas and Florida would be in the higher range, closer to 15 points, probably like 12 to 15 point ranges. Georgia and North Carolina would be in the likely Republican column at both, basically 5 to 6 point wins for Donald Trump. Arizona and Nevada would be in the likely Republican column at around similar margins, maybe even Nevada at like a 6-7 point win. Oregon, Washington would be in that likely column, including Colorado, as well as Illinois, Connecticut, Delaware, Rhode Island, New Jersey would be likely. New York would be in the likely column at just about roughly 13 points for Harris. We look at, Maine's first, that would be in the likely Democrat column. Wisconsin would be just about a 5.5 point win. Michigan and Pennsylvania would be about 1 and 2 point victories respectively. And actually, Pennsylvania would be closer to about a 3 point win. And these are what my averages for the corrected party ID numbers for the latest polls in the 3 swing states in the Rust Belt have. My averages are Trump plus 5.5 in Wisconsin, Trump plus 1.4 in Michigan, and in Pennsylvania, I have about Trump plus roughly Trump plus 1, basically Trump plus 2.7. And looking at some of these deep blue states, which Joe Biden won all by over 6.5 points, Nebraska second, I could say would be in the tilt Republican column. I have no average, but based on the national environment, it's going to be razor thin. I would say it goes to Donald Trump, especially if he's performing outside of the margin of error in the popular vote. Minnesota, my average actually has it at D plus 4.8, which essentially insinuates that it's probably going to continue to trend to the left like it has been the past cycle or so. And so more than likely, it will probably still end up with Harris, to be honest. Looking at in New Mexico, that's going to be a really tight race in my average. It's literally just 0.7% for Harris. If Donald Trump is doing this much better in Nevada, Arizona, Texas, there's no reason why it wouldn't carry over to New Mexico. It's the same thing. If Donald Trump is doing this good in Iowa, he's really winning it by about 19 points. There is no way that Wisconsin is not going to go to Donald Trump because it's just too far to the right. Iowa's too far to the right. And this little section right here, this little part that sort of connects Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, and Iowa, this little part right here is very crucial to the Rust Belt vote because it does kind of influence the coalitions a bit. This is why Obama was able to win Indiana back in 2008 because he did so good in Iowa, winning it by 10, and won Illinois by like 24 points, to the point where a lot of that support from Chicago kind of carried over to those a little bit suburban areas in Indiana, and McCain's rural support wasn't really that great either way. And so that's why you saw this huge victory for Obama back in 2008 across the board, and almost won Missouri as well. Usually when elections like this happen, the map kind of just goes for one candidate once they win it because certain coalitions end up going a certain way. Looking at a state like Virginia is another interesting one because this one in my average is really tight as well. And I mean, Joe Biden won it by 10 points last time, but when you correct for the party ID data, it is a really, really, really narrow race in Virginia. It is super duper close for Harris and maybe a little bit over a tilt margin, but it is in fact really close in my average. And the 4 polls we gotten out of a Trump v. Harris matchup, when you adjust for the party data, in my target electorate in Virginia, which is not that different from 2020, just to be fair to either side, we see a really, really close race in Virginia. Looking at New Hampshire and Maine, New Hampshire, Harris leads my average by just a little bit over 2 points, which isn't really good for her either because Republicans lead there by quite a bit. I didn't really change the electorate, but if Republicans are doing slightly better in the electorate in Maine and independents kind of break for Trump a lot heavier, it's very possible that Trump wins Maine before Minnesota. And same thing with New Hampshire. I mean, right now, in my average, Donald Trump's actually up in New Hampshire by more than he's even up in Michigan. And New Hampshire has a lot more independents. And if to be honest with you, if New Hampshire, it's just they have a large independent size. Like Maine at large and New Hampshire have about 40+% independents, way more than a lot of these states. And so that's why they're so swinging, because the independents kind of move really hard. But if Harris, according to Rasmussen reports, Donald Trump is up with independents by 8 points, and Biden won that group by 13. And so if that's really the case, that is not looking great for Kamala Harris in those states at all. And so right now my map is Trump with 317 to Harris is 221. If you could disagree with me, go ahead and comment, but at the end of the day, I'm putting in as much effort into this as humanly possible. And we can see my moving average in the popular vote. Donald Trump is at his highest point. Kamala Harris is also at her highest point. A lot of the pro-Trump polling data from late July is starting to fall out of the averages, but you're getting a lot of new polls that have Donald Trump up, so it may end up being a statistical wash as the average moves on. But Kennedy is obviously going to go down, and he's going to eventually get to 0 roughly, and we'll see where the support would have ended up. And hopefully undecideds continue to go down over time, because I want to be able to weigh those out as much as possible, so I don't really have to worry about having too many undecideds in my averages. And right now, looking at this tweet from Rich Barris, who, by the way, put out some of the best polling numbers in 2016 and 2020. Their numbers actually were correct back in 2016. He is currently in the field right now, and Mark Halperin is a person who is in charge of the YouTube channel Two Way, and he recently went viral for talking about how Kamala Harris has certain weaknesses and how Donald Trump, even before the debate, Harris may be at the same point that Joe Biden was before the debate in some of the polling data. It's very possible that that is true. And if that's the case, Donald Trump probably ends up getting to a point where he's going to be up in New Mexico, up in Virginia and Minnesota by the time we even get to the debate, which is on September 10th. It is possible that that could potentially happen. And so, guys, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe if you want more content just like this, and comment down below because it does help us out with the algorithm. And I will see you guys in the next video.